So I want to talk about something that's a little more serious this time. The last couple of videos I wanted to play a little bit, but this time it's more serious. And I want to talk about well, there is no solution for the collective. And when I talk about the collective, I'm talking about the collective of people in the world, not necessarily just the collective of brown people. Even though I know I talk about brown people a lot, that's just because that's the culture I'm from. And so when you're from a culture, you talk about that the most. That's anybody. But in this case, I'm talking about the collective of people around the world. There's no solution. And when I say there's no solution, there actually is a solution, but there's a solution that you have that could help 90% of people in the world. It just won't work. It won't work because people are too divided. People are too divided, right? So people have their beliefs in Christianity. So you have some people that's into Hinduism. You have some people that's into Buddhism. You have some people that's into Islam. You have people that's Jehovah's Witness. You have some people that's Seventh Day Adventist. You have some people that's Baptist. You have some people that's Methodist. You have some people that's AME or whatever. Well, that's Methodist again. But you have some people that's what's that? They speak in tongues all the time. Which one is that? That particular that particular one, not Baptist, not Methodist. Which one is that one? They big on speaking in tongues, and they think speaking in tongues mean they closer to Jesus or something. I forgot which one that is. The Holy Ghost filled church, but it's another word for it. That's how long it's been since I've been in church. You know, um, either way it goes, my point is saying is that you have too much division happening in order for there to be a real solution that the collective of people in the world will accept. Because when people have a different set of beliefs like that, there's no solution. There's no solution. Okay? The only solution is you. The only solution that I have, anytime somebody asks me, do I have a solution for brown people? Number one, I don't like that question because a very and nobody asked me that question recently. I'm just saying I don't like that question because I've seen it asked before. Nobody's asked me that per se, okay? But I hate when that question is asked because just from what I've witnessed, the small solutions that has been given to brown people has not been carried out, right? Some of the smallest solutions that could just be given to brown people economically, right? I'm not talking about nothing like real spiritual and stuff. I'm talking about just economically. Some of the tiniest solutions that's more on the simple side. That has just for example, just I'm using brown people for example because that's who I know, right? That's who I know. Okay, that doesn't mean that they're worse than everybody else. It's just who I know. Some of the smallest solutions that have been given to brown people has not been carried out. The most simple ones has not been carried out. There's not enough unity amongst that community, the brown community. There's not enough unity among them to want to come together in one accord and create something. And so when you have people like that can't even create the simplest things when it comes to economics, when it comes to just building up their own community like you see other people doing, not to say that they're better because they got their faults too, but even like you see other people doing, you know, when you can't even get them to do that, there's a problem. There's no solution. You can't go any further than that. If you give them something simple like Dr. Claude, some people might like him, some people might not. Be that as it may, it was advice that was pretty good to me. With some of the things that he was saying that was given to brown people. But those simple things were not carried out. Those simple things were not carried out. And for that reason, there's no other solution because you can't give them anything more complicated than that. Okay? And also, like I said, it's just division. There's the caste system, and I'm talking about in general this time. You have a caste system. You have a lot of colorism. You have people at the top that don't want to give up their spot. They want to stay at the top, no matter how much they say they don't see color, and no matter how much they say we are one, and all this mess, and they don't want to give up their spot of being what they think is at the top of society. They don't want to give up their spot. And then you have others that want to be racist towards others that think they're beneath them. Or you have lighter people of all cultures in all cultures and continents that you have this colorism everywhere. And so it's no solution. People are willingly divided like that. And those are just a few examples because I don't have a time to try to think about every single thing people do. I don't have time to think about that. Now, specifically for the brown community, I can tell you the main thing that's wrong, and it won't be corrected. Brown people are out of divine order. I said this before. Brown people are out of divine order. Patriarchy is not divine order for brown people worldwide. Patriarchy is not divine order. It's divine order for the Caucasians because that's how their race or whatever you want to call it, that's how they started. They did not start off with matriarchy. They started off with patriarchy. And other groups of people. And so things work out for them is because that's divine order for them. It's not divine order for brown people. Divine order for brown people is the feminine principle. And then, like I said in another upload before, I forgot what the name of it was, but like I said in another upload before, about how in the brown community you had a lot of these conscious people, conscious men, no matter how much they knew and no matter how knowledgeable they were, one thing I always knew is they seemed to push the masculine principle and didn't want the woman to say too much. Didn't want her to talk about herself. And even when I hear other ladies who's very knowledgeable about the womb and knowledgeable about foods and knowledgeable about astrology and they even knowledgeable about matriarchy themselves, but they won't even talk about it. They'll talk about how to have a healthy womb, which is very important. They'll talk about foods to eat, very important. They talk about astrology. I don't know about astrology because I don't agree with the way the Western astrology, definitely, but even the Vedic astrology and all that stuff. I want to know what the Jews are practicing because whatever they practicing is will still keep it helping them continue to run the world. So everybody can't know the same thing. Obviously, they know something that's been lost to the indigenous. Let me say this: it's been lost to the indigenous people. And I think the Jews was using what the indigenous people used to use before they forgot who they were. Okay? And whatever astrology folks call themselves practicing now is some other stuff that was given to them by some Western society or by some other Eastern society that's not really related to the indigenous people that practice. And so that's why I'm not into the astrology that I see because I want the real thing. That's all. I want the real thing. It's not that I don't believe in it. But the point I'm making, because I don't want to stay on that too long, the point I'm making is that even the ladies, okay, so you got the men in the conscious community that want to push that masculine principle. But even the ladies who's knowledgeable like that, who are well aware of matriarchy and well aware of all that stuff, and how matriarchy came before the first dynasty and how it was overturned, they won't even talk about it. They won't even talk about it. They stay on code with this male that pushes the masculine principle. She don't even call him out. She doesn't even call him out. And so then you get mad that things are happening to brown men. Why so many brown men keep getting shot? Because you need to put him in line. You need to put him in line. You need to put him in his place. Because see what was happening in the brown community. Now I am talking about the brown community once again because it's just what I've observed. For so long in the brown community, they want to make sure the woman stays in her place, and that's just kind of anywhere. Honestly, you see that amongst a lot of cultures, but specifically in the brown community. It's always want to make sure the brown woman stay in her place. And then the brown women don't call him out on that. The brown women don't put her foot down. Even when he's shooting up the neighborhood, killing each other and killing up kids in the neighborhood and killing old people and just killing innocent people anyway in the hood, she doesn't do anything to put her foot down. And I brought this up before, so I'm not going to just go down that road again and talk about it all over again. But my point in saying is that when you can't when you see things, just simple things that you see, anybody can see with their eyes, with their naked eye, not their spiritual eye. Anybody can see this. Anybody. And something like that, you don't even want to address that. You don't even want to address that. You don't even want to address that how the women became so unhealthy and that they don't care who they get impregnated by and they have them like 10, 20, 15 children or even 5 kids and by a bunch of deadbeats that go around getting other people pregnant in the community. And the brown community don't want to address that sickness. They can't even address that. And I remember I came online when I was on my Divine Beingness channel in like 2017, 2000, I think it was 2017. I talked about that a few times about just randomly having a bunch of kids like that and you don't even care. And then you see the first 3 kids that you had, you couldn't take care of them. You saw that the father was not going to be there. Okay, I don't care. You might have 3 baby daddies. I'm not here to judge you. My point in saying is that no matter if you have 5 baby daddies, as long as they provided, as long as they provided for that child. See, I'm not into the society of just judging you by how many baby daddies, as long as they're a provider and as long as they got some good DNA, they got some good genetics, and all those kids are taken care of. Because the truth be told, in other cultures before we got into this society, maybe that's how it was. But the point is that you had more of providers. See, but I'm basically talking about women who allow these men to just get into their womb, to get into their stargate, to allow any old soul or whatever entity, whatever kind of spirit to come from the lower worlds. Because when she in low vibration like that and he in low vibration, what's coming through her womb is from a lower realm. Because she not vibrating high enough to bring in nothing that's higher. She ain't vibrating high enough and he not either. So here, let me say this. Because this seems to be a huge problem and it's not going to be corrected. That's why there's no solution, because the people need to take heed, and when they don't take heed, there's no need in giving no solution. But worldwide, other than that, not just stuck on the brown community, worldwide, there is no solution for the people in general. There's no solution for them. There's no solution. It's too much division for there to be a solution. Too many different beliefs for there to be a solution. If one person want to believe in Christ and one person want to believe in Allah, well, some people believe in the rapture, some people don't. You got too much confusion going on for there to be a solution. It ain't no solution. It ain't no solution. The only solution is you saving yourself. That's the only solution there is. Other than that, it ain't no solution for a collective of people when there is no unity, even when it comes to beliefs. It's more people that believe in the outside world that really realizes that everything that we see outside comes from the inner world. It's more people that believe that there's just everything is just physical and there's no such thing as no inner world like that. And so when you have stuff like, and I'm talking about around the world, when you have a mixture of folks like that, there is no saving or having a solution for a collective. There's no solution. And I wouldn't try, because that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. I wouldn't even try and I wouldn't even care. Honestly, I wouldn't even care. And I don't like it when that question is asked to people, what are you doing? Specifically brown people. They like to say, well, what are you doing for the brown community? I hate that question. I hate that. What's your solution? I hate that question, because brown people as a collective, from what I've seen in previous years, they don't do anything with the little simple information they've given. They don't do nothing with that. So it ain't no solution. So what I was talking about is the low vibrational people in a lot of these communities, and two of them get together like that. Woman and male get together like that, and if they have a child, that child, nothing that's of a high vibration can come through that womb, because both of them are vibrating low, and the child is going to be a hot mess. And so you have generations, because when that crack thing started, that's when, excuse me, sorry, my phone fell. When that crack thing took off, and when that gangster music and all that stuff took off to just really just cause a huge decline in the consciousness of brown people, that's when the baby making should have just taken a halt. because then they've been genetically altered. They have been genetically altered. When you have crack pushing the community, then you have gangs pushing the community, and then you have all this music that literally probably did worse than both of the gangs and the doggone crack combined. Because music really, it's videos about how the water in your body, the type of music you listen to, and how it alters the shape of the water in your body. You're 70% water, right? Even though we don't really have bodies, but still, it still messes with the mind. It still shapes our inner world, what we listen to. And if you have a heavy belief in the physical body, it will shape that. If your mind is stuck on the physical body, which even those of us who understand that the physical body is not real, but if we still are so heavily indoctrinated in the physical rule set, that no matter how much we know that, it's hard to get into a mindset of not being physical, where we don't even act like we're physical. It still can take effect, right? And so what happened is, all that combined, that really took place during the 70s, started with the late 60s and started going on with the 70s with the black exploitation, and then it got worse in the 80s, got worse in the 90s, and the 2000s, and then you have a complete decline in vibration and consciousness and low consciousness uh, um, of the people, because it's like what somebody called it, low F waves or something like that, low F waves. Anyway, so with that music and all of that stuff that was going on, it causes the consciousness to be real low. And so then you have a group of people that's getting much and much lower in consciousness than they were in the 70s, and then they get lower in consciousness than they were in the 80s, then they get lower in consciousness than they were in the 90s, and it's getting worse and worse. And then you still have that group of people having a bunch of babies like that. They can't give birth to anything from higher realms, and so those ancient, those ancestors that's trying to come in, that's vibrating high, they can't hardly come through a brown woman in the United States of America, because a lot of them are vibrated very low. Now they can come through some of them, but some of the brown women don't want to have no kids, right? Some of them don't want to have no kids, and you don't want to have kids right now, no way. With what's going on, because now you need to have a plan. And I know I don't like planning, because I like planning too much can be ego. But at this point, when you're dealing with a child coming through you, you definitely want to have something, okay? But a lot of brown women who might be vibrating high, they're not thinking about having children, okay? Um, and so a lot of those ancestors that's vibrating high, they not coming in. And a lot of these women that's vibrating low, that's giving birth to all these children, they giving birth to uh, 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 entities from lower realms. That's what they're giving birth to, okay? And so when you have people even try to give them advice on that, to try to lift them up, to try to, I mean, it was an attempt to even prevent it. I mean, I talk about C. Dolores Tucker all the time, but I can talk about other folks too. It was an attempt, but it wasn't too much of an attempt to try to prevent what's happening now. But maybe 2 or 3 people tried to prevent it. And the brown community did not care enough to prevent saw what they foresaw. A lot of brown people foresaw this happening. That's from the baby boomer generation. They foresaw it. And they didn't care to reach out to the young ones to make sure that they learn what they need to learn. I was looking at a long time ago. It's called Crips and Bloods Made in America. It's a documentary. And I was listening to this guy tell a story about growing up in certain parts of California. I don't know if it was Watts or where it was, but it was like during that Black Panther movement. And he was talking about how it was completely dismantled. And when the Black Panther movement was dismantled, then everybody just went on their way. All of the people that was involved in the Black Panther movement just went on their way. And then it was a group of young men who was lost. Now, this is what this older guy said, right? Because he was part of the Black Panther movement. And he said when that movement was completely dismantled, He said they didn't do anything to reach out to the younger men, and this is a male saying that they didn't do, the guys of that generation that had they had more guidance. Let me say it like this: they had more guidance. They didn't do anything to reach out to the younger generations after it was dismantled. They pretty much just went about their businesses. And the way he said it was, they left the young boys, the young men, they left them in suspended animation. That's how he said it. He said we left them in suspended animation. Okay, and so then you have people try to organize something to what I guess in his mind was supposed to be positive. I forget his name, but the first one that organized the Crips, because it wasn't, what's his name, Tootsie? See, when I don't think about these people in a long time, I forget their names. But it's a popular one. I think his name is Tookie Williams. I think his name is Tookie. He's not the one. It was one that came before him. I think his name starts with an R. But he was one of the original organizers of the Crips in the late 60s. Like late 60s, early 70s. He was one of the organizers of the Crips. And so what happened was those guys, I guess, was left with no guidance. And what happened was they wanted to come up and organize something. And I guess this guy came up with what's called the Crips. And then it turned into what it turned into. Okay. But yeah, but that's all I was saying. You had a generation of people that saw that a lot of them kind of foresaw what was going to happen, and maybe they felt like it wasn't their responsibility to teach the children anything. And that's unfortunate, because every other culture understands that you just don't leave kids to learn for themselves. That's why you have what you have now. And then finally, with these kids, when they turn 50 and 60, they can look back and see where they were wrong. But see, it wouldn't have to be like that if you teach them from the beginning. It wouldn't have to be like that if you teach them from the beginning. Okay? And so, but that's all. And that's why I say it's no solution at this point. It's no solution for the brown community. But there's no solution for the collective of people, period. No matter if they have a culture, the tight culture, nice community, nice places, stores, and restaurants, economically doing well, spiritually, to get out of what's going on right now, to be safe from what's about to come now. Well, actually, it already came. We're in a time loop. It already came. But I'm not going to say we're in a time loop anymore. I'm not going to keep holding on to the time loop for myself. I'm not going to hold on to it. But I'll just say most people are still in the time loop. Even if they're in Africa, or even if they're, somewhere else, they're still in a time loop. And what it is that getting out of getting out of what they see with their physical eyes is happening right now, what they perceive with because I'm calling it a perception at this point. Because if you're in a time loop, then this problem has happened about 30, 40 years ago already. And so people are talking about, oh, it's coming. No, it already came. You're in a time loop. This probably happened 40 years ago. I mean, if you keep getting deja vu, you keep reliving the same event over and over and over again. It's like this person, this movie called Vivarium. They kept trying to leave, but they kept passing by the same house, and they couldn't leave where they were. And people in the time loop, they keep reliving the same thing. It's like the Israelites that was going around the same mountain for 40 years. They kept going around the same mountain for 40 years. What I'm saying is that what you seeing with your physical eyes today probably already happened 40 years ago. And you're getting a lot of deja vu because you keep reliving the same event, like in that movie Vivarium. Not to say it's the same thing, but that's just what made Vivarium came up in my mind as I was saying that. That's not to say that's what that movie meant. That's just to say that's what came up in my mind as I'm talking about this. They kept trying to leave and get off the property of this housing area, this housing community, and they kept passing by the house that they were staying in, and they could not get out, and they were stuck there forever. Like they literally died there. They died there. They got older and they died there. Okay, they could not find their way out. Because let me tell you something. Getting out is not an intellectual thing. Using your brains and using intellect, it ain't gonna get you free. It ain't gonna get you free. And trying to look for something outside of yourself, in my opinion, is not gonna get you free. Um, so, but because a lot of people are different in their beliefs, you can't save. It's no solution for the mass of people. It's no solution because there's too much of a division when it comes to what to believe. And when you try to give them a solution based on what you're doing for yourself that might work for you, well, what worked for you might not work for somebody else. But the point is that you can say enough to them that can spark them, that can activate them, and they can pursue their own way of getting out of the mess. They don't have to do everything the exact way you do it because their spirit is going to lead them how to do things. Everybody's not going to do everything the exact way, but the destination is the same destination, but they go about it a different way. Okay, but yeah, that's all I was saying. Uh, what we're seeing now is, for me, to get out of it is spiritual because this has already happened before. And I suspect this has already happened over 30 years ago. Or maybe this has happened 30 years ago. Maybe this has happened 40 years ago. Maybe it's already happened 20 years ago. Okay? But I do know what people are seeing with their physical eyes right now, in what they believe is 2022, has already happened. It's already happened. They're not seeing anything new. There's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new. What you're seeing right now is not something that's just now happening. It's already happened, and you keep reliving the same situation over and over and over again because to get out of it is spiritual. Okay? I don't think I want to try to think of anything to say beyond that because it's time for me to get on out and go inside. But that's it, and I'll talk later.